Welcome to the Bill Levinson Experience, a motivational podcast relating to the insurance brokerage industry and business in general. And now, here's Bill Levinson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Bill Levinson Experience podcast. First off, thank you so much for joining and taking the time with us. If it's 7 a.m. or 2 a.m. or 4 p.m., whatever the case is in your part of the country, my hat goes off to all of you because you're all listening and trying to learn and ultimately walking away with a few nuggets that will help change your practice, right? That's the name of the game. And obviously, you're trying to better yourself. And me and my guest speaker are hoping to accomplish exactly that. That's the goal. That's the name of the game. It's my job to go out and find any great success stories that are maybe relative to our industry, or, I have some guest speakers that have nothing to do with our industry. So I have to go out and handpick these guest speakers, right, and their platforms and their companies to make sure that whatever they're bringing to the table will help our audience. So I think we've accomplished exactly that on today's episode. Very, very excited stuff, as always. So let me just make a brief introduction. And by the way, I hope you're taking lots and lots of notes because you're going to learn a lot of great information. So please. And I know most of you are licensed insurance agents. Even if you're not, maybe you're one of my friends or in my networking groups, or maybe you're just in a different part of the country and you love to hear some of these positive episodes. This might be a good option for you. And even if you are an agent and you're thinking about maybe putting a premium finance program together for yourself, this could also be a great option for you, or any small business opportunities. Another huge plus, and as we go through this podcast, you're going to want to start thinking about this, but going through your existing book, you're going to hear about, let's say, minimum requirements, and you're going to say, oh my gosh, I know a guy, I know a girl, right? So jot down these notes as we go. Also, small business owners, another great fit, okay? And you're going to hear some nuggets that have to do with business owners and the value add here. So anyway, start putting the gears in motion and jot down lots and lots of notes, please. So as you know, we try to have all parts of the insurance industry covered with our great carriers, products, our third-party vendors that we work with, of course, our technology, right? We're known to be one of the top IMOs when it comes to technology and that advanced forward thinking, right? Very important to make it in today's world. So, we have a premium finance program that we launched. Let's see, it's been a couple years now. And basically the way we came up with David and his company, NIW, is, and as you know, I just said this a few times, we have to always make sure that we're out there finding what's best for our agents, right? And any great technology sales strategies, and that's exactly how we came to NIW, okay, which, and you're going to hear this in a minute, but in my opinion, the top premium finance outlet in the industry today. And we put together a great contract platform, if you want to call it that, with David and his team, and that's exactly what we're going over today. There is nothing else like this. Yes, they have a great premium finance platform, and by the way, okay, you think, oh, great, premium finance, I need to give up half my commission, and, I don't have a client that can even fit into this, or it's way over my head, or whatever the case is, and all of those three things, you are exactly incorrect. Okay, number one, your prospect, okay, doesn't have to be the Bill Gates billionaire to fit into this criteria, okay? If your client is making at least $100,000 a year, net worth being irrelevant, they're in the game, okay? We can talk, and we have an option for that person, okay? And it's important for you to understand that. Number two, you're not giving up half the commission. Now, depending on the program that they qualify for, there is a small percentage that NIW does hold back but it's not half your commissions. We'll talk more about that after the call if you're interested. Obviously, we'll get you set up right away. And number 3 is it doesn't have to be so far over your head where you don't understand the lingo and you need to understand in layman's terms. David is here to help you. If you have the right client that fits, right, which in my opinion is almost everyone in your book, right, because those 2 minimum requirements are so super low that everyone knows someone. The point is David will jump on a call with you, okay, and your client and help you make the sale. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist when it comes to premium finance. So anyway, we have a little bit of something for everyone on the call today, and that's what gets me most excited, okay? So everyone, sit back, relax. We're going to jump right in. We also had a webinar about a month ago with David, and it was awesome. In fact, that's when I asked him, I said, oh my gosh, we got to get you on our podcast, the Bill Levinson Experience, because our agents are going to love this. And most important, they're going to walk away with some sales ideas and strategies that they can all put in force and start using this afternoon. So anyway, good stuff here as always. Now, David, first off, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time. I know how busy you are as VP of Business Development at NIW. I know you pretty much run the show, but we appreciate you spending it with us this afternoon. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Bill.
Yep. No, I appreciate it. All right, let's jump right in. If we can just go back for a second, if you can just tell us, maybe how it all began for you, how you wound up in this crazy part of the industry, right? And education-wise, insurance experience, just share a little background if you don't mind.
Well, thanks, Bill, and thanks for having me on. It's certainly a pleasure to work with an agency of your caliber. I look at all the IMOs that are out there, and what you do for your agents is truly amazing. So it's truly a pleasure to be able to speak with you guys today. I go back. My pleasure. I go back pretty far. It's almost embarrassing, but I go back to when I was 26. I think I was 26 years old, and started selling for E.F. Hutton when they came out with their Universal Life. And my father-in-law and brother-in-law were in the business, and they say, you really have to look at this, Dave. And so I'm thinking, do I want to be in the insurance business? Holy cow. But I started doing that, and things progressed, and I was the outcast because everybody hated Universal Life. And I thought, 2 things happened that day I got in. Number one, I realized that Universal Life was a great product, but then are we still there, Bill?
Yes. Yep. We're good.
I thought I lost you there for a second. So then I realized that with the advent of Universal Life, people started changing the way they sold insurance. And so they started selling off of a ledger instead of a need. And I always stuck with need selling and always thought that was the way to go. I still do. And you'll probably get that from me today. So I don't necessarily like to work off of ledgers and illustrations, even though we kind of rely on them in today's marketplace. So I started, selling for E.F. Hutton, and then I got into property and casualty organizations, and so started heading up a large property and casualty division. And then I went into the banking industry and headed up the life division of a 13 bank agency in beautiful Iowa, and then went into a CPA firm and did that. So I started thinking I've got to learn every facet of this industry. So my next step, of course, was to work for carriers to see what they do and how they underwrite and how they do actuarial, calculations. And so I, at that time, joined what E.F. Hutton had become was First Capital Life. I was the regional vice president of First Capital Life, and then once again became a regional director of Jefferson Pilot when they opened up their direct markets to the independent agencies. And then got moved over to Southland Life out of Atlanta, Georgia. And so I've been in Atlanta for the last 25 years. But I started toying with premium financing back in the mid-'90s. And at that time, we were using variable products, which became a disaster. And then we moved back into fixed products, and that fell apart. And so it wasn't until we saw index life products that the premium finance market really took off, and we were able to justify it from a risk point of view. And of course, the index products are very sophisticated. They're doing the job, and so I started pushing premium financing to the groups that I worked with, and one of them was actually NIW out of Dallas. And so I educated them on premium financing, and they took the ball. And in 2000, they became what I would call lending intermediaries. And so they took the lending to another level. And so at this point, we have at NIW about 14 lenders that we work with. So there's not really a time if somebody bows out, we don't have, we have the ability to go to 13 others. We have approximately in the traditional markets, close to $6 billion of loans in force right now, and a persistency of over 95%, which is unheard of in the industry. So people actually enjoy our products. They don't want to get out of them. They understand them. A knowledgeable client is our best client. And we're very conservative, and our bankers know that because we do a lot of stress testing. And so any case that goes out there, we'll stress test it through the worst two economic times in history. And that would be the Great Depression, where you had really low crediting rate environments. In fact, in an index product, if I got into an index product in 1930, well, the first 9 out of the first 12 years would have been 0, and it still works great. And so we do that for our lenders to show them, how competitive the lending portion of our program is. And of course, everybody asks, what if loan rates go up? That's the first question. And so we push it through the 1980s as well. And I don't know if you were ready for this, Bill, but I had my first mortgage. It was an adjustable rate mortgage in 1981, and I thought I'd hit the jackpot at 12.25%. And that was adjustable rate. So you know that the fixed rates were like 16 and 17%. So if we pushed our lending through that, what would it do to the contract? And we actually found that it worked better than if I were to write it in today's market. So our lenders just love the idea how we stress test. Now, if it doesn't pass the stress test, we won't write it. And so that protects the client. It protects the agent as well. And so we're pretty comfortable with that. That's why we have such a high persistency. That's great. That's kind of me up to today.
Yeah, no. That's a great. So you've really been on all sides, and I think that's key. It's just funny. I hear this story over and over with insurance professionals, executives in our industry. Is they always say, like in the beginning, growing up in high school and then college and then winding up in our business, they're like, I really didn't want to go in this direction, but my brother-in-law or father, or mother told me, how you can make some pretty good money and help these families, or convince you to do otherwise. And that's exactly how I wound up in this industry at 21 years old. It's just funny to hear. You think of, and I say this all the time. When I was growing up, I thought of like these insurance guys as the ones with the short sleeve dress shirts and the ties that stopped at their belly button. And I was like, this is not a business that I want to be in. But, all of a sudden you make a few bucks, and you're helping these families, and you start coming up with creative ideas or platforms, and you see them working, and you're like, you know what, this could be a pretty good, attractive business. And you kind of change the way it's been done, prior. And that's what you did. That's what I did. And anyway, I love to hear those kinds of stories. Good stuff.
Yeah, and it just progressed, and everything, like you said, if you're innovative in the market, new things come right to you. And so in not to accelerate, but in 2012 is when we started thinking, well, wait a minute, the traditional premium finance market is kind of finite. There's only so many people out there, but and it was created primarily for death benefit only. So the lowest premium was basically the winner. And what we thought is, how can we move a premium finance structure into let's say, the business executive benefit arena, or through the individual, like you said, that's making as little as $100,000 a year, they still need not only insurance, but with the index products that came out, they were created predominantly for growth and income. So how can we use the index product in a way that's unfamiliar with the industry? And so what we did, we flipped the lowest premium wins over to the lowest death benefit wins with the most to put into the contract. And we found that if you overfund these contracts, they become not only very competitive, but the expense ratios get less than what a mutual fund would charge. And so people don't realize that the way we utilize index products, it becomes the most incredible, what I would call term and invest the rest program out there, because that's what we're selling is term and invest the rest. It's just what is the rest that they're not familiar with. Now, all of a sudden, if we can add a component of financing to that, you got something. Now, what I always want to do, and you point this out a lot, Bill, is how do you keep it simple? And so I always say that we're using IUL for growth, and all we're doing is adding more money to it. Now, how simple can that be? And that's what we do. We add the more money to it. And so if I always start with what is the objective, if the objective is retirement planning, I know where to go with that. If it's traditional premium financing for death benefit, I know where to go for that. So we have to do our fact finding to find out what these people are wanting and needing in the industry. Well, most people are needing more growth and income for retirement planning. And so that's what we did, is we created a concept called Kaizen. And in 2012, we launched that. And today it's just going great. I mean, we're just expanding by leaps and bounds. So I could get into that unless you want to kind of move in a direction that you want, Bill.
Yeah, no, I do want to get into the various platforms that are available. But real quick, I think it's important that everyone, because we have so many different types of agents and age ranges on on today's episode. So what I'd like to do is, yes, keep it simple, KISS, as they say. Can you just explain, and yes, there's so many different, goals depending on the client and how this could be designed and what product and what carrier. But I think like the 100-foot overview, to keep it simple, stupid, right? And if you can explain the way your mortgage story on how, someone's looking at buying a house, and even if they can afford paying cash for the house, how they still should take out a mortgage and maybe get a 3.2% interest rate, how looking at that theory, just like life insurance, how it kind of makes sense, like to the agent and the consumer.
Sure. Let me start with kind of what your profile is. And then, so we're looking at ages 18 to 65, basically. Those are the years that you're putting away money for a later date. And so we also have set this up in a 10-pay program, of which the client only pays for 5 years. So we have a 5-pay for the client, and the lender will pay for 10 years. And so we technically have looked at this and said, wait a minute, if I look over 10 years, the lender is actually paying 75% of the 10-pay max premium, and the client is paying 5 years. So I run into this all the time where a client says, well, another guy told me to max fund these things, I'm going to put in $65,000 a year for 10 years, and it's just going to run forever. Well, I come back and I say, well, how would you you rather pay, instead of $65,000 for 10 years, why wouldn't you pay $33,000 for 5 years, and we'll finance the rest? Well, I just cut his outlay by 3/4. So if the guy says, well, wait a minute, I really do want to pay $65,000 a year, I say, well, why don't we finance 3 times on top of that as well and leverage that up? And so what that brought me to is, I always want to have an objective with everything I do. And we've all been at parties, or we've been at a function, and somebody asks you what you do for a living. And so that's the elevator pitch of all elevator pitches, is what can you do to set the hook at a party? Well, if somebody says, what do you do for a living? I don't want to get into, IUL and everything. And so a couple of times I was at I've told this before, but this kind of got me thinking. And if, I actually have a license to sell, I don't sell unless I use it in my neighborhood to test market. And so this is what I've done. Somebody at a tennis party said to me, "What do I do for a living?" And I said, "I provide tax-free income to executives and professionals who can afford it." And what do you think the guy said? "Well, what does it take to afford?" He says, "What does it take?" And I says, "Well, how much do you make?" And he goes, "About $700,000 a year." And I go, "Well, you just got in under the wire." So he says, well, "How does it work?" And I said, "Well, do you have some time next week?" Because I don't want to get into it there because I want them to have a visual way of explaining this. And I can't do that at a party or something. And so he says, "Well, I'm pissing away money." He says, "Let's get together." Well, that was a sale. And I didn't try to do it. I just got kind of forced into it. And so, and then another one that you guys would probably want to use that Bill was referring to is, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "Can I ask you a personal question?" "Yeah." "Do you own a house?" "Yeah, I do." "Did you pay cash or did you finance it?" "Well, I financed it." And I say, why would you do that?" And they're stymied. They go, "Well, I couldn't afford it." "No, you wanted a bigger house, didn't you?" And it makes sense because when you get a bigger house and you use a mortgage, you're using other people's money to fund an appreciable asset like your home. So if your home increased by 10% and you took out an $800,000 mortgage, it increased the value of that home by 10% that you didn't put money down for. And so then I say, "Can I ask you another question? Are you doing the same thing with your retirement planning?" And they just are stuck. And they go, "What do you mean?" I go, "Aren't you financing to leverage up and to get more income at 65? And they always say, "I didn't know you could do that." And I say, "That's what I do for a living." And it's so easy. And they go, "Well, how does that work?" "Well, do you have some time next week?" "Yeah." So that's kind of it. Once you just set the little hook, then you set up the meeting. So that's my objective, is to set the hook.
I love it. And it's so funny. It's just like, it's asking the right questions, right? It's a different spin. And if I had my insurance agent hat on, I would write down those 3 comments right away, because those are game changers. You're at the cocktail party, and the old joke is, you tell someone that you're an insurance agent and they're going to move 30 feet away from you before you can finish saying that you're an insurance agent. But when you talk about, hey, I work with prospects and business owners, right, to help them save on taxes or retirement planning, it changes the game, and it's asking the right question back. I love it. And when you look at it like that, it's a different conversation. All of a sudden, it's tell me more, I love that spin.
It's so true. And, I kind of got into a situation where I was always doing PowerPoint presentations. And so I became a PowerPoint guru. And so every time I would put together a PowerPoint presentation, I would pick somebody in the neighborhood, and I would say, "Hey, Bill, I just finished a PowerPoint presentation on a really nice tax-free retirement program. Would you be a guinea pig and critique it for me?" What are they going to say? The guy says, "Sure." So I go over and I do the presentation as if it wasn't for them, it was for somebody else. In other words, I was working with a guy that was 45. And I did this for a husband and wife. And I went through the PowerPoint and I said, so this guy wanted a program that would spin off $100,000 a year to him at 65. And so that's what we did. And then I said, "Well, what did you think of the presentation?" And the gal says, "We're going to need more than $100,000 a year." And it wasn't that I sold them. It was I was telling them what I did for somebody else. And that takes the pressure off of them. They'll come to you and say, "This is what I'd like to see." So I always would I help agents sell based on what they need at 65 rather than how much they can afford now, because they'll rarely tell you what they can afford. And so you'll end up selling minimum cases instead of what they truly need.
Yeah, I love it. It's just a different spin, which changes the conversation, and that's what everybody needs to know. So That's great stuff.
All right. Let me kind of tell you why it's so easy to sell is because we've taken away the premium finance problem, and that is collateral. So in other words, we have a 5-pay program where the loans are given without qualification, no signature, no personal collateral, and it doesn't show up on any balance sheet. I know you guys want to be in the corporate markets. This is the most ideal product and strategy for deferred comp, buy, sell, stock redemption for salary continuation, because it doesn't show up on the corporate balance sheet. And I can write key man policies till the cows come home and finance on top of that. Now, the 5-pay program for an organization is critical because they can budget for it. They're not looking at, do I have to pay for the life of the employee? No, it's 5 years and you're done. So it's become a turnkey platform, not only for the agent, but for the consumer.
And I'll tell you right now, no one else has anything like this that I've ever seen, at least. So this is very, very unique strategies and great concepts that no one has access to, unless obviously you're working with us and David and his team. But let me also, let me just one thing real quick. I want to switch gears again. And I know we're skipping around a little bit, but I think it's important. Just explain, because there's so many myths and rumors around premium finance, and years ago, some agents had a bad taste in their mouth, and rightfully so. Can you just back up for a second and let's give the 100-foot overview on, premium finance, like the agent's talking to a prospect at the cocktail party, and they say, well, what is premium finance? How would you answer that in a nutshell? How would you inform the agents to speak about it?
I would basically say all we're doing is adding more money to a very sophisticated growth vehicle that's run by insurance carriers. And so if you want to look at, who are the number one industry that's regulated, it's insurance carriers. And they invest predominantly in double and triple A bonds. So your money is safe. And so what we're doing is it's actually, for the lender, it's better than a mortgage, because it's what I would say, if you're familiar with margin accounts, a margin account, if the security kind of drops, you could have a margin call and have to cough up more money. Well, imagine a vehicle that never has a margin call because it never goes below zero. And so this is probably what I would call the best margin account in history. And so you're going to finance 3-to-1 up to 3-to-1 on top of whatever you put in, rather than 50% of what you have in a security at a high rate of interest. And so what we're doing, we're providing the funds. And the reason why we can do it without a signature is because we don't go to the bank with one person and say we need $35,000 a year. No, we create what are called tranches of maybe 80 to 100 clients, and now we go to the bank with $3 and $5 million a year. And so the bank says, you are the ones that we want to work with, because the vehicle we're lending to is the safest vehicle we can find in the marketplace, and it's perfect collateral for the bank. So the banks love it.
Very, that's brilliant. Very, very smart. Now, when the client says to the agent, well, who is this NIW company, right? This new investor world? Like, tell me a little bit about them. How would you answer?
I would say that we're an agency, just like you guys are. Only we concentrate more on the lending. Now, we do, all the illustrations for you. We will do the administration for you. We do all the lending. In fact, for you guys, the agents, once you make the sale and get an underwriting offer, we basically take over. And so you guys can go back to selling. We're going to do all the administration, the annual reports, the lending. You don't have to raise a finger after that. So we want to keep you selling.
Very, very simple. Doesn't get any easier than that. And how long have you guys been doing this? And Dave?
Yeah, we've been in the business. We've been in premium finance since 2000, and we came out with Kaizen and launched that in 2012. We do, I said that we do tranches. In the early days, it was, we would do a tranche about once every 6 months because we were new. Now it's hard enough to do a tranche every 2 months. So we do a tranche every 2 months, and we have 80 to 100 lives in every tranche. It's just every time. So people are kind of rushing to get in every time. It used to be that they would say, what if I have to wait on it? You're not waiting anymore. So we, like I said, we're just passing the 6 billion mark. We kind of pride ourselves with our persistency rate. Even with Kaizen, the only time that the persistency kind of goes down is if we have a death, and so we take that off and use that as our persistency rate. So, if you want, and another thing is that some people want cash or their commissions up front. In order for us to do this, where you don't have to have a signature or anything, we need our early cash value riders on the program. So you're going to end up taking commission over a 5 or 6 year period, but you're going to love it if you've never done it because it comes every year regardless of what you're doing. So you're developing an ongoing stream of revenue that just doesn't stop. It's just pretty amazing. And you'll find that too, even though, like you said, Bill, we take a sliver of the case, we're actually adding 75% more dollars to the case. Guess what that does to the target premium? Well, if I add more money, I've got to add more death benefit, and your target increases. So you're going to I kind of did a study on this. You're going to make about 120% more than if you wrote it yourself.
Yeah, and these average cases are huge too. So we're not talking about $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a target premium. These are large cases that are for some people life changing. So this is
well,
huge.
Bill, it's amazing what comes in our door anymore. In other words, I had a wealthy female that was looking for safe money, and when she saw Kaizen, she not only contributed $1 million a year into her contract, but did the same for her 2 adult children. So I mean, she was worth a lot of money. But a lot of people are scared to death of the market. I just was with 3 women that said, I've got money, and they were all divorcees, so they're scared to death. They've got money in the market, and they say, how can I create a safe vehicle? Well, it's just a shoe-in at that point in time. And then when you tell them that, hey, you're going to have $1 million to a life insurance too, do you have kids? Yeah, I have 3 kids. You mean that can go to my kids? Yeah. All of a sudden, they're interested in the life insurance, even though you showed them how you can generate $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 a year of tax-free money without risk. It's pretty amazing.
So they're getting it on both sides. It's a win-win. Yeah, it's unreal. And again, I brought this up earlier, but I don't want you to think like, oh my gosh, how am I going to answer all of these questions? And this is my first case, and who do I reach out to? So obviously, we are here to help you, okay? But David is much more advanced than we are when it comes to premium finance, and he will as long as you're set up and active with Levinson, we will make the introduction, and he will help you with this client, if it's through a webinar, through a conference call, whatever the case is. He will jump on and help you all. So if you've sold IUL before, if you've sold whole life, okay, then you can sell a premium finance case with David's help and with the help of NIW. So we've seen it happen over and over, and that's why I thought this call was so important, because if you're an insurance agent, especially right now during COVID, and most of you all have to sell from home right now, you've changed your style, there's no more of these face-to-face seminars, okay? we're looking for things to supplement our income and even change, right, the way you've done things for the past 20, 30, 40 years. So this is a great, great add-on that ultimately you could be focused on this after you see, A, how you're helping people, and B, getting referrals and how it's changing your income level. So, and that brings me to the next point. Dave, if you can share any, personal success stories maybe that you were involved with or heard about or saw that happened maybe through NIW, anything that you can share with the group?
Yeah, and where the success stories are starting now, and I'm glad you brought that up, Bill, because, COVID is one thing, but we realized a couple years ago that the market or the internet was kind of taking over a lot of marketing. If you've looked at Carvana, how did that happen? And I thought, being as old as I am, I didn't realize that we found out that the affluent are now 4 times more likely to purchase on the internet than from us as agents. And it's very evident in the physician marketplace, because physicians don't want to see us during the day, and they don't want to be sold, period. So what they're doing, they're reading about everything. They like to get to their computers at night. And so Bill knows this, because Bill is a preferred vendor of ours. You too will have access to what's called My Ilia, which is an internet-based program that is a marketing extravaganza. I mean, we can actually do a Zoom meeting with a client, and I don't need an illustration anymore, because I can do anything that they ask on the fly. If they say, hey, I want to put in $40,000 a year, what does that give me at 65? I can do it right then. They may say something as screwy as, does it matter if I have cancer? Well, yeah, it matters. And so they say, well, I would say, well, how about your wife? Is she in good health? Yeah, she's in good health. So we could put it on the wife. And so like when Bill said, well, you only need $100,000 a year income, that's per person. And so in other words, if somebody's making $200,000 a year, you could write 2 cases out of that family, because it's household income. Did that help?
Yeah, no. That's perfect. And the My Ilia platform, the software that they can tap into. I wish, obviously, this is just audio, and on the webinar we actually showed a demo, an example of this. But if and I know you went over this for a second, Dave, but can you just explain one more time? Like, so the whole platform, it's available to our agents once they're active and they're in and set up, and this will explain the premium finance against whatever retirement fund or anything that they want to put up against the premium finance program. Is that right, Dave?
It is. I can compare it to anything they want to invest in. And it's on the fly, so I can do it instantly. So you know those days where they say, well, can you show me $40,000 a year income? And you would say, well, I'll have to go back to the office and run an illustration. No longer. You do it right there in front of them. Now, the beauty behind this thing is that it's not only a marketing strategy or a website, but I can do all of my other work on that. So in other words, I might say to this guy, would you like for me to send you this so you can play with it at any time that you want? And they would go, yeah, I want to play with it. Now, at the bottom of the menu, it says enroll now. So we've given them the ability not only to create their own plan, but then they can go down and enroll electronically. Even the trust work that we do is all done probably in 15 minutes, because we populate everything that client has on the application. So in other words, half of the stuff they don't even have to fill in because it's already done. Now, because I'm old, I can't imagine somebody putting in $40,000 a year on the internet. Yet we're getting, 15 to 20 cases a week of people filling these things out, and the agent doesn't even know it until they get the email that says that your client just enrolled. So you will know exactly what your clients are doing. Now, where does this develop in how we market? Well, I always say at the end, if I make a sale, I say, let's say I wrote a realtor, and I might say, are you a part of an association? And they go, yeah, the Atlanta Real Estate Association. Do you know who runs that? well, yeah, it's Bill Levinson or whoever. And I would say, can we get a hold of him, because he's going to want to offer this to all the members. And they go, no, sure. Well, I just got in with 10,000 lives as a member benefit for an association. Now, I would have never been able to do this unless I have the ability to enroll electronically. I don't even have to see these people. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that really impressed us. Because, like I said 3 times now, no one has anything like this, and these are tools that you can leverage, especially during this whole pandemic. So this is awesome, and I want you to know we have an entire section on our website with all of this information, screenshots, examples, case examples that we can show you to make sure that you're comfortable. Okay, so it's as great as David is making this sound, and I can also tell you it is as good, if not better. Okay, but you all have to understand just the basics, right? Enough to be dangerous, as I always say, and then you just initiate the appointment or the meeting or the call, whatever it is. And David will get involved with you to help you make the sale. Now, Dave, can you, and I know you just brought up that association, and that's such a great value add, but can you explain, I don't know, maybe for a small business owner, or maybe it was an agent's prospect insured, that maybe a good success story that the agents can relate to that are on this call? Any good stories you can share?
Well, my favorite ones are the ones, and an example is just a small one where I had a manufacturing company that had 5 key man policies of like $2 million of face on each one. And so they were paying for like 20 years into this thing, and there wasn't a lot of cash value, but when I showed them how they could leverage that up and get almost twice the benefit with the same dollar, I mean, it was pretty much a done deal. And so anytime that you get into a business arrangement, you pretty much have a sale. Now, for the individual, I would say we see soup to nuts. We have a lot of doctors on here, attorneys, people that really need to put away money but aren't doing it right now, and they don't know where to put it in a safe vehicle. And so it's just, I always like to get to the end game of retirement planning and say, all right, if you need 80% of what you were making at the time you retired, what would that be? And if they're making $200,000, that's $160,000 a year. I said, how you coming getting to that? And it's a sheepish look on their face. And then you say, well, let's try to figure out how we can get to your goal. And that's when I use my ILIA, and I say, okay, if you need 160, let's assume that you've got 30,000 in Social Security, maybe 30,000 from your investments. So you're still, $40,000 a year short. So then I will put on ILIA exactly what they would need to put in to get $40,000 a year income. And I solve their problem. It's kind of amazing how easy it just falls into place, because they tell you what they need, not you're telling. You're an advisor now, not a salesperson.
I love, and ultimately you're helping these businesses or these prospects, right? You're bringing the ultimate value add, because there's no other platform like this. So I mean, think about this: if they're getting 15 to 20 cases a week, and I know what we're submitting, but 15 to 20 of these cases a week, that's unbelievable. Okay, so you think about what you're able to now bring to the table and go back to these small businesses or these prospects, right? And have a new story to tell and a new marketing angle. So anyway, I love this.
Bill, let me add one more thing, is that
Please.
My ILIA platform has the ability to utilize like a MailChimp. So let's say I have 100 potential clients that I work with a CPA, and the CPA says, how do we get this information to my 100 people? And you would say, let's put them in MailChimp. Well, we have a complete email drip campaign where we can drip them with one-page emails, and then we invite them onto the ILIA and then make the sale. I mean, it's pretty easy, but I get to 100 people that I would never have been able to get to.
That, no, that's awesome. And they already have the marketing pieces pre-made for you, and
Yep.
all of this is turnkey at no charge. So it's a win-win. All right, so just a couple more things, and then we're going to end the call. I know we're running a little behind, but I want to make sure we get everything covered here. So this is the $1 million question. So you have your agent hat on, Dave, and you're out there, you're listening, and you want to change your game, right, for the end of 2020 and get off to a great start in 21. You have your book of business, right? Who are you going to start to look for? Who would you say, you know what? This person could be perfect. I'm going to bring this up to Bob or to Susie, right? What are you looking for if you're that agent diving into your book?
Well, I'm actively looking for somebody that is fairly affluent, that is still working, that has good income, and that has the wherewithal to put in the 20, 30, 40,000 a year. Now, I may not know that at the time, but what I would do is say, let's get you guys on a Zoom meeting and teach you how to do the Zoom meeting, so that you can say, listen, you can call a guy and say, I just ran into a program. I've got to have you look at it and critique it for me. So you get them on and you say, this is what I did for another guy. Let me show you how it works. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to say, well, wait a minute. I'm 48 years old. What does it look like for me? And then they're in on it. So the more proficient you get with the people you know, then all of a sudden you're going to branch out and you're going to go to the CPAs, and you're going to go to maybe you sell a lot of annuities for 70 to 80-year-olds that have kids that need this. And then the 70-year-old says, why wasn't this around when I was that age? And you would say, you've got 2 kids that age. Boom.
Love it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it just takes one, and then that's it. So I love that concept, and everyone has someone they can talk to about this. So no more excuses. And we already have all the marketing pre-made. Everything's ready to go. Last question here, and then we're going to wrap up with a few thoughts. As far as NIW, right? So you guys basically have 3 platforms with Kaizen, Trizen, the traditional premium finance. Just give a quick overview on the various platforms so everyone knows what's available, Dave, and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay. Kaizen is what we've kind of been discussing. It's an after-tax premium. So in other words, I'm probably going to make an income, or I have existing cash somewhere that I'm going to use for this. Now, Trizen is a little more fun, and that's a way that you can get a corporation to loan the money for the premium to the individual or the employee. So if I had an employer that was a C Corp or a not-for-profit, I might say, wait a minute, I want you to loan me $30,000 a year for the next 5 years to fund this. Now, why is it good for everybody? Well, number one, the loan is tax-free to the individual. I'm not going to pay tax on it. Number two is, for the corporation, that loan is now an asset because it's a loan that's interest-bearing, and they book it as a receivable. So instead of paying you and paying payroll taxes, they're going to take that and they'll get it back eventually in the form of a death benefit. So it's kind of a really neat way to do. It's basically a loan regime split dollar plan, but with financing. And it's for the corporate markets. They just love it. Then the traditional is kind of what you're all used to, the high net worth, 10 million and up clients. And we can use that in a number of ways, whether it be in a corporation where we use it for deferred comp or salary continuation. It can be, we can actually do what's called a multi-generational financing. Imagine you have an 80-year-old that's worth $50 million and can't buy insurance. Well, we'll finance all the insurance on their kids and use an inter-family split dollar loan to fund it, and it just helps everybody. And they're pretty big cases too. So that's a fun one that we work with. Those are the basic 3 or 4.
Yeah, no. That's perfect. I just want everyone to know the basics, and then if you have the right business, the right prospect, you think this could work, please let us know. Just know enough to be dangerous. We have some pros in this space that write a bunch of cases a month, and then we have a lot of, in fact, over 19,000 agents across the country, and most have never written a premium finance case. So the purpose of this episode was to make sure that you all know enough to be dangerous. That was my goal, and that's what I wanted David to bring to the table, and he did exactly that. So I appreciate you, Dave, for jumping on. And then do you have any other thoughts before we wrap this up, Dave? Is that you pretty good?
Well, the only thing I would say is, Bill, anytime you get a few guys together that want to know more, let's do a Zoom meeting, and we'll just do some educational Zooms.
Perfect. I love it. And then, we have a couple webinars that we did. We have training material. We have marketing pieces on the website. Call any one of our marketers. Once you're set up, we can get Dave on a call with you as well, so no problem with that. Just a few takeaways. I think it's so important, what Dave touched on. It's asking the right questions, right? And then going back to that cocktail tennis party, 7 p.m., you meet Mr. and Mrs. Wilson. No, you're not the life insurance guy or girl. You're there to help your clients, right, to talk about tax strategies, retirement planning. You're not the insurance agent that's been around since 1971. No, ask the right questions. And all of a sudden, it puts a completely different spin on the conversation. And now all of a sudden, they say, tell me more, or can you meet me next Wednesday at 6? I want to hear more. Yeah. And I know someone, and then it just keeps going on and on and on. So now is the perfect time to go look back at your book of business, see if you have any prospects or clients that might be a good candidate, or talk to family and friends. Start marketing this concept. David said he'll make himself available through a Zoom meeting, a go-to webinar, go-to meeting, just for you and your client, and literally make the sale for you. Use our resources. Go to our website. We did a bunch of trainings with David. Lots and lots of knowledge here at your fingertips. And please reach out to any one of our marketers. We'll make sure you're 100% comfortable with everything we went over today. With that said, have a wonderful October. Happy Halloween. We'll see you next month on the Bill Levinson Experience. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Bill Levinson Experience. Please feel free to share this podcast with anyone you think would be interested. You may also visit levinsonassociates.com and all of Bill Levinson's social media pages for more information.